Okay, guys, so welcome to today's class. So this is the last class for the year for for CTA. So this is Mac 4861, Mac 4862. We will be covering a relevant costing question. This is test 2 of 2017, which is equivalent to your test 4. So remember, from I don't know when, but up until 2017, cost accounting was done in the first half of the year and financial management was done in the second half of the year. From 2018, they switched it around where they started with financial management and they end off with cost accounting. So that is why any paper before, any paper from 2017 and before, cost accounting will be in test 1 and test 2, where financial management will be test 3 and test 4. From 2018 onwards, financial management is test 1 and test 2, and cost accounting is test 3 and test 4. So this here is 2017 test 2, which is equivalent to your test 4, and this is Mac 4861. So this question is about relevant costing. So I'll give you a quick overview, like 2 minutes on relevant costing, and then it's best to cover it as we go through the scenario. The whole purpose of relevant costing is to deal with a situation where you want to make a decision, but the decision is not a long-term decision, it is a short-term decision. So that's very important. When you consider a long-term decision, you will use capital budgeting techniques, because capital budgeting take long-term decisions into account. Relevant costing, very similar to capital budgeting, but we focus more on a short-term decision. In most cases, it will be a situation where the typical scenario would be where the World Cup is coming, you have spare capacity, and you need to make a decision where you're going to produce some items specifically for the World Cup. As you can understand, the World Cup is short-lived. It's only for a specified period of time in your country. So you may take advantage of it in that instance. So that's where the relevant costing comes into play. Okay. The critical thing, like with capital budgeting, the critical thing when it comes to relevant costing, you want to ask yourself the question, is this a future differential cash flow? If it is a future differential cash flow, then you want to include it. So the word future means it's a cash flow that must still take place. It is not a cash flow that have taken place already. If something have taken place already, it's known as a sunk cost and we ignore it. If something must still take place, then that is a future amount. So we're interested in future differential cash flows. The word cash flow means it must be a cash flow and not a non-cash flow. So we're not interested in depreciation and so forth. Okay, and then that middle term, differential, or another term for it, relevant. That is where the topic comes, relevant costing. So that middle term is differential or relevant. Differential or relevant mean that cost or that cost or income is only being incurred or earned as a result of the decision. So if you're going to do this decision, you will earn it or you will incur it. If you don't do the decision, don't go ahead with the decision, it will not be incurred, it will not be earned. That makes it relevant. Something is non-differential, something is not relevant if whether or not you go ahead with the decision, it will still be incurred, it will still be earned. So whether you go ahead or do not go ahead, you're still going to earn that income or you're still going to incur that expense, then that item is not relevant because in both situations, it's going to be there. But the moment something becomes relevant, something becomes differential, where you're only going to earn it or you're only going to incur it as a result of that decision being as a result of that decision. The other way is also true. You will only save that cost or something of that nature if the decision is going ahead. So that's very important. So remember, we're only interested in future differential, future relevant cash flows. Other stuff to consider, you must always look for opportunity cost. Remember, what's an opportunity cost? It is the best alternative foregone. So you want to go, you deciding whether to, whether you want to keep the current machine or not. So if you decide to keep the current machine, then that means you are a possible opportunity cost would be that you have foregone the possibility of selling the machine right now. So that would be an opportunity cost, because you have two choices: either sell or keep it. You decided to keep it, so the best alternative foregone is selling. So that is an opportunity cost. So when it comes to relevant costing, the chances of there being an opportunity cost is close to 100%. Okay, so be on the lookout. I'm not saying it's always going to be there, but be on the lookout. The next thing also you need to be aware of, especially on the CTA level, that there can be a relevant cost within a relevant cost. So we call it a nested decision. Okay, so it's a decision within a decision. So that is a nested, if you use fancy terms, they call it a nested decision. So if you remember, I can't remember, I kind of remember it, but I don't know stats anymore. But if you remember, we did stats, then we dealt with nested decision within decisions, some hectic things like that. So so similarly over here, on a CTA level, they will throw, I mean, they can throw a decision within a decision. And there's going to be a situation like this in this question. So when we come there, I'll bring it to your attention. Okay, so just be aware, when you look at relevant costing, that is as simple as it gets. The only other complication is when you deal with material and or with labor. But I'm not going to deal with that in this scenario. So let's move on, and we're going to read the scenario and then we're going to answer the question. So they say Jack and Jane both studied BCom accounting together a few years ago, and both have become indifferent in their current corporate positions. They've decided to apply with the accounting and business skills. They have decided to apply with the accounting and business skills, but at the same time, having fun and doing something exciting. They have seen a gap in the market for shared office space business in South Africa. A shared office space is an office sharing concept where the owner of a large office space sublets desks and small offices within the building to others for a monthly, weekly, or even hourly rate. It is frequently used by entrepreneurs, freelancers, and small business owners. They set up a company called Business Space. They set up a company called Business Space Pty Ltd. The aim is to open every day. The aim is to be open every day of the year. Okay, so here you get just a background. Two BCom students, they in the share office space market, and they basically want to have a building, an office building that they will rent out to entrepreneurs, freelancers, and small business owners, and the company is called Business Space. Other thing to keep note, the aim is to be open every day of the year. Okay, so let's have a look. Jane's mother inherited a small factory of approximately 450 meters squared, which has been standing empty for the last couple of years, for which she has no use. It is located on a busy intersection. The current market value is 10 million rand for similar size building, which are usually leased at 10% of the market value per annum. So 10% of the market value per annum is a million rand per year. It was valued at 8 million rand in 2001. Business Space will need to refurbish the building at a cost of 1.5 million, which will be financed by personal loans over 5 years. Okay, take note of that. Jane's mom stated that she will give a grace period of 2 years, not charging rent in the refurbished building. Okay, so there you can see there's a there's a factory building, 450 meters squared. That's market value is 10 million Rand, and market rate is about 10% of market value. Okay, so we get that. They're going to have to refurbish the building for 1.5 million. And they're going to finance this over with a personal loans over 5 years, and they're going to get free 2 years of rent. That's probably like because of the 1.5 million refurbishment. Okay, so just take note of that. Since Jack and Jane would like to sign up as many people as possible, they have decided to make space rental as low as possible, but would like to break even and be debt-free after the 2-year initial period. They will initially be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. The following information is available. Okay, so take note. They want to break even and be debt-free. They want to break even and be debt-free after 2 years. Okay, so take note. So remember that they took out loans of 1.5 million, but it's only repayable after 5 years. But despite that, they want to be debt-free after 2 years. So that means we're gonna have to probably work out some amount that includes all costs plus all debt, and work out what they would need, how much sales they need to make in order to cover all their costs and all their debt in a 2-year period. Okay, so take note. Remember, break even is generally fixed cost divided by contribution margin per unit. So they may not ask us for contribution margin per unit, but they can. But basically, all we need to do is basically sales equal costs. Because if sales equal costs, that means we will be able to, if sales equal cost, that means we break even. Okay, profit will be 0. But remember, the cost must include debt, because they don't just want to break even, they want to break even and be debt free. So just take note of that. So point number 1, Jack's uncle from the Eastern Cape has a small carpeting, I think that, okay, business, and I think they meant carpenting, a carpenter, whatever, okay, anyway, and has agreed to produce the required desks. A total of 100 desks will be required. His uncle indicated that the material cost per desk will be 750 Rand and would like a 40% profit margin, reduced from his normal 50% margin. Okay, so there you can see what the cost would be, 450 plus a 40% margin. In anticipation of the project, Jack already bought appropriate wood for 40 desks, for which he paid 650 Rand. He is quite proud of himself as another buyer has already offered him 700 Rand for it, which seems to be the market value. Okay, so here you can understand now, they need 100 desks. Okay, they can get what did they say? The uncle said that the material costs will be 750 Rand per desk, and there's a profit margin, basically labor, of 40%. Okay, so 40% profit margin. Take note, it is not 40% on costs, it is 40% on sales. When they say profit margin, it is on sales and not cost. Okay, so basically there will be a 40% profit margin, and there will be a material cost of 750. But now they need 100 desks. But in the next sentence, they're telling you that Jack already bought wood for 40 Rand. I mean, for 40 desks. So that means that 650 that he paid is a sunk cost. He already paid it. Okay. So whether or not they go ahead with this business venture, he already incurred the 650. So it is a sunk cost. So we won't include that 650 for the 40 desks. But take note that because he already have wood for 40 desks, he's only going to require wood for 60 desks. So just be aware of that. However, there is an opportunity cost over here that he is quite proud of himself, as another buyer has already offered him 700 Rand for it. So there's an opportunity cost over here. So we have to take that opportunity cost into account. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so now we're going to have electricity per kilowatt. So point number 2, electricity per kilowatt hour will be 135 for the first 600 kilowatts per month and 142 thereafter. Okay, they calculated that each desk would require 5 kilowatts per day to compensate, amongst other things, for printers, lights, calculation for lights. Okay, calculations are based on an average 30 days per month period. Okay, so how are we going to calculate this? So you can see that it's 5 kilowatts per hour. So what we're going to have to do, 5 kilowatts, for 5 kilowatts per desk per day. So how are you going to work it out? It is 5 kilowatts per day. We're going to multiply that by the number of days in a month. Okay, so it's 5 kilowatts per day times 30 days in a month. That will give you the amount of electricity required per month per desk. Then we multiply it by the number of desks, which is 100 desks. Okay, that will give you the total number of anticipated kilowatts. Okay, and then but you see the kilowatt price is given in hours. So we'll have to convert that number of kilowatts into hours so that we can multiply by the relevant pricing. Okay, so just be aware of that. Just take note. One of the topics is like what they call what's it called now? Risk and uncertainty. Okay, so they call risk and uncertainty. So because they're anticipating, right? So they want to have a space of 100 desks available every day. But that does not mean that every desk is going to be occupied every day. Okay, so what you do, they'll probably give us information. So if they don't give us, we use 100 desks. But because of the CTA level, they're most likely going to apply the risk and uncertainty. We will give you they'll give you a probability of occupancy rate, okay, and we're going to have to apply that. But if we come across that, I'll bring it to your attention. Okay, the next point over here is the following. Let me do that. They would have to buy printers at 15,500 Rand each. Toners would have to be replaced every second month at 2,500 Rand per toner. Jack suggested that they might lease the printers at a rate of 25 cents per page printed. Customers would be required to supply their own paper for either option. Jane stated that they need 2 printers for every 25 desks. So for every 25 desks, they need 2 printers. How many 25 desks in their building? There's 4 25 desks in their building, because they have 100 desks divided by 25 gives them 4. So each of those will require 2. So that means they'll have to buy 8 printers at 15,500 Rand each. Okay, and then each printer will require a toner every 2 months. Okay. What did they say? Jane stated that they need 2 printers for every 25 desks and estimates that the client will print approximately 25 pages per hour. Okay, so that's very important. A client will print 25 pages per hour. It's a lot of pages. Okay, so now this here is a nested decision. Okay, so they can either buy the printer or they can lease the printer. So we're already busy with a relevant costing question. So now they have another relevant costing within a relevant costing. That what we meant is a, so the entire question is a relevant costing question. Okay, but then within this entire relevant costing question, this over here is another relevant costing question. So that what we mean is a nested decision is a relevant costing within a relevant costing. So we're going to have to do a calculation to decide which of these two is the cheapest. Okay, so just be aware of that. So you must take a note. CTA level, they like this. Okay, so you must decide between two options or even three options. An accountant will be required on a half-day basis. The going rate at the moment is 10,500 Rand per month on this basis. Jane has however offered to that since the company is low on cash, okay, she could perform this duty for the first 3 months at no cost. Okay, so remember we're doing a 24-month period over here. So all the 24 months, 3 months she's gonna do. So we're gonna need an accountant for 21 months. Okay. They will require an office manager. They will require, where am I? Oh, they will require an office manager. Jack proposed that one of his employees at another business will be ideal. He currently earns 20,000 Rand per month. Since his current work is primarily cloud-based, he could sit at the new premises and still do his previous work. They will pay him 5,000 Rand in addition due to their added responsibility. So here is the issue of relevant costing, okay? Differential relevant amount. So whether or not he takes this job or whether or not they go ahead with the business, that this employee is still being paid 20,000 Rand, okay? So whether or not business space takes off or whether or not this guy accepts the business, the offer, he's still getting paid for his original job at 20,000 Rand. If business space do go ahead, and if this guy accepts the offer, then they will incur an extra 5,000 Rand. So that extra 5,000 Rand, that's the relevant cost. Because whether or not business space takes off, that guy is still earning his 20,000 Rand. But if business space do take off and he accepts the offer, he will earn an extra 5,000 Rand. So the 5,000 Rand is the relevant cost. So remember, future differential cash flow. The 5,000 Rand, that's the differential. The 20,000 is a non-differential, is irrelevant, is not relevant, because whether or not business space goes ahead, he's still earning his 20,000 Rand. Okay. They will initially hire a cleaning company to clean the facility at night. They charge 10 Rand per square meter and will clean 6 days a week. Okay, so it's 10 Rand per square meter. And then it is 6 days a week that they're going to be working. Okay, remember the square meters is 450. After some of, okay, so here we go. After some of market research on occupancy, they came to the following conclusion. Occupancy and chance. There's a 60% occupancy. 60% occupancy, there's a 30% chance. 70% 70% capacity, there's a 40% chance, and then 80% capacity, there is a 30% chance. Okay. So Jack and Jane believe that they could achieve a 60% markup. It might be, if they could achieve a 60% markup, it might be worth their while. Okay, so we're going to deal with part 2. I'm going to check something quickly. Okay, so let's deal with part two. I'm only going to do A and B. Okay, so now we're going to do A and B. Let's start with A first. So they're saying calculate the minimum costs to business space in order to operate on a monthly basis using relevant costing principles. State with each cost why it was considered or disregarded. Just remember for cost accounting, this is very important. In some cases, you will not pass the question because of what I'm going to tell you now, even though everything else you wrote is correct. So in a lot of relevant costing questions, if you don't do what I tell you now, even if you got everything else right, you can almost fail the question. And what is that? That when you don't use a number, you must still include it and give a reason why you're not including it. So you'll put it there, you'll make it as 0. So for example, like with that 20,000 Rand, the 20,000 Rand of that guy that getting paid, you mustn't ignore it. You must put it in, but you will put it in at 0 and tell them why that's 0. So you will say 20,000 Rand for current employee, 0, and then you'll say why it is non-differential, because he's going to get it irrespective. So you get a mark for that. Like I said, there's some question that most of the stuff you ignore, but a lot of people don't put it in and they lose quite a bit of marks. So just be aware of that, that quite a bit of this square of this mark of this 10 marks can be because you must because you must put in something that is not that you're not going to use. So that's what they're telling you here. State with each cost why it was considered or disregarded. So there's lots of marks for disregarding. So in any costing question, I always suggest put it in, even if you're not using it, and tell them why you are not using it. Because in many cases, there's quite a bit of marks for that. Okay, so just be aware. So now I'm going to switch over into Google Sheets, and then we're going to answer this question. Just another thing, calculate the minimum cost. Okay, that's what they want. They want the minimum cost. So you must always choose the cheapest option. You should be able to see Excel. I mean, Google Sheets, whatever it is. So let's see what question is there. Okay. So now we're going to do this question. Okay, so we're going to switch between the scenario and this thing. So just go back. So remember what they asked us to do. What they've asked us to do, calculate the minimum costs in order to operate on a monthly basis. So we ultimately need to get to a monthly basis using relevant costing. Now remember, we want to do this over, they want to break even and be debt-free after 2 years. So we're going to use a 2-year period. So we're going to work out costs for 2 years, and we want the minimum cost for the 2 years. And then at the end, we divide it by 24 to get a monthly basis, okay? Okay, so let's have a look. Oh, sorry, I just want to get to the top over here. Okay. So now you read through the scenario again. As you go through the scenario, you will put in the details. Okay, so here I'm going to have details. So what you're going to have some workings over here for them. Okay, so generally you can have your workings. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put here, okay, so I'm telling you that's a 24-month amount. Then I'm going to have my comments. The comments, you must give a reason. And then here I'll have my workings. Okay. Okay. So that is what I'm going to do. That's my format. And then over here, I will just have my, if I need any further workings. Okay, so now we're going to basically work through this. Okay, so remember, so we're going to start over here. We're going to deal with the rent, and we're going to deal with the refurbishment. Okay, so rent of factory. So remember what we're doing, we're dealing with the first 2 years, because they want to break even and be debt-free within the first 2 years of their business. So they want to know how much money they need to make. Okay, so the minimum cost, including all debt, over a 2-year period to get to break even. Okay, so just be aware of that. So rent of factory, remember for the first 2 years, the mother is going to give it for free. Okay, so this is what you will just say. You'll just, whatever they told us, grace period. Okay, so I'm going to have 24 monthly, the cost for 24 months. And then at the end, so what we're going to do, just to make it clear over here, so this here is going to be total cost. The total cost is just going to be equal sum, all of that. Okay. And then what we want the monthly cost. So what we're going to say, so this is our setup. So total cost for 24 months. Okay, but we want, so here's number of months, which is going to be 24. And then that's going to give us costs per minimum cost per month. Okay, so that is basically what we're going to do. Okay, so there's the setup. Now we can do whatever we want to do. Not whatever we want to do. So now we know everything is sorted. I'm not going to put in the, in your case, you can already do the working if you're using Excel. I don't want to do the working yet. I'll do it at the end. So you can see what we're doing. Okay. So here we're going to have rent of factory. So rent of factory, it is 24 months. So we're working for 24-month period. So that is critical. Okay. So maybe I just want to make a putting over here. I just want to put this in over here. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so now we can go. The next thing is the refurbishment. Refurbishment. The total cost is 1.5 million. Okay, there we go. Okay, no need to put a comment. That's all we need to know. Okay, so what we dealt with. So remember, in an exam, especially and relevant costing is an important one to do this. Highlight all numbers, whether the number is written in digits or whether the number is written in words. Okay, so just be aware of that. Remember, you don't want to highlight, you want to highlight sparingly. The whole point of highlighting is to ensure that the highlight stands out. I've seen many people highlight and not being like, how can I say, like onto a specific gender or something of that nature. But generally, the ones that have the whole of CNA is the girls, right? So the girls generally have the whole of CNA. So they have that thing of highlighting, so that to a point where the unhighlighted is like the important. So make sure that when you highlight, that the highlight is the important aspect and not the unhighlighted part being the important aspect. So highlight sparingly. So what you must highlight is like this, that 450, that 10 million. So you want to highlight all the numbers so it's easy to pick it up. Okay. So here we know that there's a refurbishment of 1.5 million. You want to make sure you highlighted that. Okay. And then somehow you needed to make sure that you remember that there's a grace period for rent, not charging rent for the 2 years. Okay, so just be aware of that. So we dealt with that. And then over here, they're telling us that since Jack and Jane like to say whatever, they decided to make rent, but they would like to break even and be debt free after 2 years. They will be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it's a 12-hour period. And the following information is available. Now we can go point by point. Okay. So remember, Jack's uncle from the Eastern Cape has a small carpeting business and has agreed to produce the required desk. A total of 100 desks will be required. His uncle indicated that the material cost per desk will be $750 and will charge a 40% profit margin. In anticipation of the project, Jack already bought appropriate wood for 40 desks, for which he paid $650. Okay, and we know that part. So now we can go and we can plug this in. So remember, there's 100 desks. So we're going to need wood for 100 desks, and we're going to need labor for 100 desks. That's it. Okay, so what we're going to put in over here. So now remember, for the 100 desks, 40 has already been bought. So therefore, we only need to pay for 60. Okay, so therefore we're going to have desks. Okay, wood purchases. So here we're going to buy workings. We're going to say the following. So for workings, we're going to say 60 desks multiplied by 750. Okay, so remember, we only want 60 desks. Okay, I mean, we want 100 desks, but we already acquired wood for 40. So therefore, we only need to buy additional wood for 60. Okay, so this here is going to equal 60 desks at 750. But that does not mean we must ignore the other 40. So we must talk about the other 40. Okay, so here we're going to say desks would for 40. So here we're going to say it is 0. And the comment we're going to say sunk costs. Okay. Then we must not forget the opportunity costs. Okay, so we're going to say desks wood for 40 The opportunity cost is going, so here we're going to say it's an opportunity cost. And now there's 40 wood, desk for 40 wood at, you can get 700. Okay. So this here is going to be 40 that he could sell for 700. So it's a cost. So that is the cost. So just take note. Okay. So what we covered over there, we covered everything regarding the wood specifically. There's 100 desks. We need wood for 100 desks. Okay. Jack already have wood for 40 desks. Therefore, we only need wood for 60 desks. So therefore, we're buying wood for 60 desks. Okay. We need wood for 60 desks. Okay. So that is what we have so far. So that's important to take note. And we're going to pay 750 because we have to pay his uncle 750. But then we're telling them regarding the 40. The 40 that you already purchased, we're going to include it in a zero. Why are we including it in a zero? Because it is a sunk cost. Then over here, for the desk of 40, you can sell it for 700. He's not going to sell it because he needs it for the, what you call it. So therefore, he will, forego it. So remember, we want to work out the minimum cost. If he could have gotten 800, if he could have gotten 800 rand for that 40 wood, then he would rather pay the, what you call it. Okay, so just be aware, we're working out the minimum cost. So let's say the other buyer was willing to pay 800 rand per desk, per the wood for the desk, then we would rather sell it because we're going to get 800 and we just need to pay 750 to buy. But because he's rather going to forego the sale. Why? Because if he forego the sale, he's going to need to buy. The sale is only giving 700 rand, yet it's going to cost him 750. So therefore, he rather forego the sale in order to not pay for additional wood. So remember, you must work out the minimum cost. So you must have a look between which option is cheaper, to take the sale and buy new wood, or forego the sale to not buy new wood. So remember, in this case, it is best to forego the sale because he's only getting 700. Because if he gets 700, he needs to go buy more wood and pay 750. So it doesn't make sense. But what if the person was willing to pay him 800? Then he would rather take the sale, get the 800 rand and pay 750 for the new wood. So remember, just be very aware of that. But we're not yet done with that point. We must still now deal with the labor. Now remember, you can call it labor or profit margin, doesn't matter. Okay, so the labor, he needs the labor for the 100 desks. So just be aware of that, okay? Because the wood is one thing and the desk is another thing. The uncle is going to charge, say 40% for, uncle's going to charge 40% profit margin for the labor. Now remember, the uncle does not know how much he paid for the other wood. So the uncle's going to charge him 40% on 750. So just be aware of that. So therefore over here, it's going to be 750 times 100 desks, okay? Because the uncles have to pay, uncle's gonna have to charge for 100 desks. And the profit margin is going to be, okay, maybe we do this, 750 per desk at a profit margin of 40%. So it's gonna be 40 divided by 100, okay, times 100. So remember, this 40% over here is the profit margin. It's on 750. The uncle does not know how much he paid for the other 40. Uncle's going to charge him labor on the uncle's price of 750, whether he buys for whatever. So it's 750 times 40 over 100 times 100 desks. Okay, so just be aware of that. So here we're going to go profit margin is 750 times 40 divided by 100. So the uncle's profit margin is 300 Rand per desk. But how many desks are we buying? 100. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so now that's that paragraph done. The next paragraph is what? What's the next paragraph? Where are we now? Electricity. Okay, so electricity. So electricity per, am I right? Yes. So electricity per kilowatt will be 135 for the first 600 and then 142 for the remaining. So they say, they calculated that each desk would require 5 kilowatts per day to compensate among, okay, calculations are based on an average of 30 days. Okay, so now we're gonna have to work this out. Okay, so we're gonna have here electricity 600 hours. Okay, then we're gonna have electricity remaining hours. Okay, so now we're going to work out the hours. Remaining hours. Okay, now we're going to work out the hours. So in a working one. So the working one, we're going to have to work out first the occupancy. Okay, so let's first work out the occupancy. So remember, what did they give us right at the bottom? So why I want to work out the occupancy first is because you're going to need that in almost everything. Okay, so we're going to say occupancy and then chance. So we're going to say occupancy, chance meaning probability, probability, and then just basically weighting. Okay. So someone can just help me. So it is 60, 70, 80, 60, 70, 80, then it was 30, 40, 30. Okay, so remember, we needed to add to 100. The probability must always add up to 100, 100% or 1, okay? Depending how you write it, but it must always add up to 1. Or in my case, I'm going to add up to 100. Okay, so probability has to add up to 1 or 100. Okay, so 100, so that's fine. So the weighting is going to be 60 times 30. Let's do this. Okay. So the occupancy rate is that green highlight. Okay, so the occupancy rate is the green highlight, 70%. So that we're going to use in most calculations. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, so now let's go back to what we need to calculate. So for the electricity. So electricity is 135 per hour. So electricity per kilowatt hour will be 135 with the first 600 kilowatt hours, and then per month, and then 142 for the remainder. Okay, so let's calculate. So what we need to work out, how many kilowatt hours are we going to have for the month. Okay, so that's very important. So let's work it out. So working 2. Okay, so what's the kilowatt hours per month? So they're saying it is 5 kilowatt hours per day per desk. Okay, so remember, 5 kilowatt hours per day per desk. So that's very important. Okay, so let's have a look. So basically, the number of kilowatt hours per day, number of kilowatt hours per day, that is 5, okay, per day per desk. So it is 5. We're happy with that. Number of days per month, number of days per month is 30. So when you say 5 times 30, that will give you the number of hours per month per desk. Okay, so I'm just going to do it a bit longer. You can obviously work it out much quicker without writing all the details I'm writing, but it's just for us to get, for you to get an understanding. Okay, so this is number of kilowatt hours per month per desk. Okay, so it's going to be equal to 5 times 30. Now we're going to have to work this out multiplied by the number of desks. Okay, number of desks occupied. Now remember, you will only use the number of desks that is occupied. Okay, they're not going to use all the desks. So therefore, it's going to be equal to 100 times 70%. So only 70 desks per day. So only 70% of the place will be occupied based on their numbers. So we don't use 100. We have to only use the what you call it. So number of kilowatts per month. Okay, not per desk, total. Okay. Okay, and now we can say, okay, so that's 10,500. Okay, for 600 kilowatt hours. So therefore, remaining kilowatt hours would be remaining kilowatt hours would be that minus that. Okay, so just understand what we just did over here. If you have any questions, you can just ask me. Okay, so now what's important is take note, although you have 100 desks, you're not going to make a revenue of 100 desks every single day. The probability rate is 70%. Okay, so we're only going to occupy 70 desks per day. That's what they estimate. Okay, so therefore the cost incurred would also be based on 70 desks. Same like that's how a hotel works out their revenue, how they would plan. And that is why, like, when you look at a hotel, they'll always talk about occupancy rates. Okay, you look at leasing, they'll talk about occupancy rates. So for those of you who's into leasing of want to buy a property and rent it out, you don't work out how much money you're going to make by saying rent per month times 12 months. You have to say rent times month times 12 months multiplied by an occupancy, an expected occupancy rate. So like a lot of people into property, to be conservative, they will multiply by 75%, because on a conservative basis, they will say the the property will be rented for 9 months out of 12 months. That's generally conservative. But I think now maybe with COVID, that might be a little bit not even conservative anymore. You understand? But obviously you will know what. You can't work out. So your cost will run for 12 months because banks and everybody else don't care that you don't have rent. You don't have tenants, you must still pay everything else, your rates and all of those type of stuff. So your cost will run for 12 months, but your rent, you must factor in not 12 months because you're not 100% certain. So just to be more conservative, to make sure that you charge a proper amount, that you factor in those stuff. Same with hospitals. If you look at one of the key metrics of a hospital, just go through Life Healthcare. They will have in their annual report, you might just look, they will have something called key performance indicators or something like that, key metrics. And one of the key metrics for them would be number of patients and patient days. Okay, so remember, they want to keep patients as long as possible because then, the number of patient days, that generates their money. So just you might just think about that. Okay. Okay, so now we can deal with this. So remember, we're working over a 2-month period. That calculation on working one was only for 1 month. So for 600, it's going to be 600 multiplied by 1.35 multiplied by 2 months. Okay, so we're going to say equal 600 first, what you call it, 135 times 2 months. We're working for a 2-year period, so we multiply by 2 months. Okay, then over here, it's going to be 9,900. So you can tell them over here, working 2. Okay, multiplied by 142, I think. Also for 2 months. Okay, multiplied by 2. So now we will say over here, it is equal to 9,900 multiplied by 1.42 multiplied by 2 months. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to go to the next bullet point. So the next bullet point is as follows. What's the next one now? Here's the printers. Okay, so the same. They would have to buy printers at 15,000 Rand each. Toners have to be replaced every second month at 2,500 Rand per toner. Okay, so Jack suggested that they might lease the printer at the rate of 25 cents per page printed. Customers would be required to supply their own paper for either option. Jane stated that they need 2 printers for every 25 desks and estimated that their client will print approximately 25 pages per hour. Okay, so let's work out lease and then work out buy. Or it doesn't matter, buy or lease. Okay, so working 3. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to choose the cheaper option. Okay, so we're going to choose the cheaper option. Okay. Okay, so we're going to leave a spot over there for cheapest option chosen. So let's work out. So for buy, if we buy, there's going to be printer costs, and if we buy, there's going to be printer costs, and there's going to be if we buy, there's going to be printer costs, and there's going to be what's the other one? Toner costs. Okay, so printer costs and then toner costs. Remember, the way I'm working it out, I'm working it out for a 2-year period. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, so this will be total cost 2 months. Total cost for 2 years, not 2 months, for 2 years. Okay, so if we go with a buy. Remember, we're only going to buy a printer once. But how many printers we're going to buy? We're going to buy 8 printers. So here we're going to say, so remember, they need 25 printers. They need 2 printers per 25 desks. So when they set up, what you call it, remember, they're not setting up based on how many people it's going to occupy. They're going to set it up based on how many desks they have, because they're going to put in 2 printers in an area of 25 desks. So they have 100 desks. So therefore, they're going to put in 2 for every 25 desks. How many sets of 25 desks do they have? They have 4. Because the building have 100 desks, so there are 4 sets of 25 desks. So each set of 25 desks will have access to 2 printers. So therefore, how many printers are they going to have? They're going to have 8 printers. So how are we going to get that? So the number of printers is going to be 8. So it's going to be basically 100 divided by 25. That gives us the number of 25 desk sets. So there's 4 multiplied by 2 printers per 25 desks. So that will give us 8 multiplied by 15,500 per desk, per printer. So here we're going to say 100 divided by 25. As you can see, Google Sheets is telling you the answer is 4. That's 4 sets of 25 desks. Then we're going to multiply it by each set of 25 desks, get 2 printers. So if I put in 2, you can see Google Sheet is showing you the answer is 8. Then we're going to say multiplied by 15,500. So the cost of the printers is going to add up to 124. We're only going to buy printers once in this 2 years based on what they are telling us. Okay. Now we're going to get toner costs. They said each printer will require 1 toner every 2 months. How many months in a year? So remember, how many months in a year? There's 12 months in a year. Every 2 months, you're going to need a new toner. So we're going to divide it by 2, right? So we're going to divide it by 2. So 12 divided by 2, it is 6. So each printer is going to use 6 toners per year. How many printers are there? There's 8 printers. What's the cost of a print of a toner? I don't know now. The toner is 2,500 Rand. Okay, toner is 2,005 multiplied by 2,500. So that is going to be the total cost per year. But remember, we're working for a 2-year period. So I'm going to multiply by 2. So here we're going to say every printer is going to use a toner every second month. Okay, so I'm going to say there's 12 months in a year, every second month. So that means we're going to need 6 toners. Okay, then we're going to say, so we're going to need 6 toners per printer. There's 8 printers. So therefore, for a year, we're going to need 48 toners. But each toner costs 2,500. So the cost is 120,000 Rand. Okay, but we need it for 2 years. So that's only for 1 year. So we multiply by 2, come to 240. So the total cost to buy printers is going to be, for a 2-year period, is going to be whatever this adds up to. Okay, 364. Now we're going to do the lease option. Okay. Well, the lease option is going to be 25 cents per page. Okay, so costs per, was it per page? 25 cents per page printed. Okay, so cost per page, 25 cents. Okay, now we're going to need to work out the number of pages per year, or the number of pages for the 2 years. Okay, so they're telling us, what did they tell us quickly? What did they tell us? Jack suggested that they might lease the printers at the rate of 25 cents per page. Customers would be required to supply, okay. Jane stated that they need 2 printers for every 25 desks and estimates that the client will print approximately 25 pages per hour. Okay, so a client will print 25 pages per hour. So let's work this out. So as a number of pages per hour, number of pages per hour is 25. Okay. I'm going to remove this for now. I'll tell you why. And I'll make it more. So number of pages per hour. Then we're going to say number of pages per day, per hour, per client. Okay, so number per hour, number of pages per hour per client. So I think she said that. Let me just see. 25. Did I read that? Estimates that a client will print 25 pages per hour. Okay, so number of pages per hour per client, number of pages per hour per client, number of hours per day. Okay, so number of hours per day, it is going to be 12 hours from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay, so therefore, number of pages per day. So this is going to be number of pages per day. Okay, so that's number of pages per day, which is 300 pages per day per client. Okay, so this is still per client. Now we need to know how many days in a year, how many days in a month, and then how many months in the year. Okay, number of days per month. I'm just showing it the long way so you can see the thinking. In an exam, you can do it much quicker by writing all like this. You can do it like this in an exam, okay? Writing it all next to each other. But I'm just showing you the thinking so that when you write, as you're writing like this, you are thinking like that, okay? So that's what we want to try to get to. So number of days per month, it is 30. So therefore, that will give you number of pages per month per client. Okay, so it's going to be 300 multiplied by 30. Okay, so we're happy with that. So that's 9,000 pages per month per client. But how many months in the year? Number of months per year. That's going to give us 12. So therefore, this over here number of pages per year per client is going to be equal to it's going to be that multiplied by that. But now remember, each client will be using a desk. Okay, so each client will be using a desk, but we know there's 100 desks. But we know 100 desks is not going to be occupied. So therefore, we just use number of desks is going to be 70. We don't use the 100. Why can't we use the 100? Because not 100 desks will be occupied. So this will be this here is going to be total number of pages per year. Okay, so this is taking all desks into account. 108 times 70. We don't take 100 because the occupancy rate won't be 100, it will be 70. So that is the number of pages per year. Now we can work out the cost. Cost per page, it is 0.25. Cost of printing per year, it is equal to that multiplied by that. That's only per year. Remember, we need to get it for 2 years. For 2 years, it is going to be that times 2. So there you can already see this is way more compared to the buy. Okay, so 3780. So therefore the cheap option is 364. It is 364, which is the buy. Okay, so now we go up over here. We're going to say printing costs, 364,000. You're going to say I option chosen because cheapest. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now that you can see I went a very long way of calculating the lease. That is the thinking that must go through your mind, but you don't have to set it up like that. You can write next to, like in one line like this. You can write in one line like that, but your thinking must be in the way I set it up to get to the right answer. Okay, so here we're going to say working, what don't know which working that was now. Working 3. Okay, so just be aware of that. So that is printing cost. So now we can go to the next one. So there we go, printing is done. So an accountant will be required on a half-day basis for 10,500. Okay, so here we will just go accountant, first 3 months, 0. Okay, Jade doing for free. Okay, accountant remaining months going to be 10,500 multiplied by 21 months. Okay, so here we're going to go equal 10,500 times 21. Just so you know, there's different ways to set this out. The line items is the same. This column of the amount can be in different ways. You can do each month, each line item on a monthly basis. What I'm doing it on a 24-month basis. Then I just do one calculation by dividing by 24. You can work out on an annual basis and then divide by the relative to get to the correct monthly figure. Up to you. Okay, so just take a note. There's not one set way. The set out like this, kind of follow the set out. What I have over here, kind of follow that. What the numbers I'm having over here, you can decide how you want it. That is why I made it clear to the person marking my paper. I'm working on a 24-month amount. Okay, and so this amount, this total is for 24 months, for 2 years. Then I'll divide by 24 months because they don't want 24 months. They want a minimum cost per month. So just be aware of that. Okay, so that is my accounting costs. Then we're going to have the next thing is the office manager. Office manager, 20K. This is going to be 0. Okay, not 20K not relevant. And then we're just going to go over here, office manager, 5K. That is going to be relevant. So we're going to say over here, 5,000 times 24 months. So I'm going to say equal 5,000 times 24 months. Okay. Okay, and then the last one, I think it's the last thing. We're going to have a cleaning people. So the cleaning people, they will initially hire a cleaning company to clean the facility at night. They charge 10 Rand per square meter and they will clean 6 days a week. Okay, so 6 days a week. So yeah, I'm going to have working for. Okay, so number of days per week, number of days per week is 6. Okay, number of weeks per year is 52. Okay, so number of days per year, okay, it is going to equal that times that. Then we're going to say number of square meters for 50. Okay, costs per square meter is 10. So here's going to be annual cost. Then we just want costs for 2 years. Okay, so annual cost is going to be days per year multiplied by number of square meters multiplied by the cost, and then that's going to equal times 2. That times 2. Okay, so 2808, whatever that is. So this here is C71. It's going to be equal C71. So this is cleaning costs. So there we have covered everything. So for 2 years, the cost is going to be 5.1. For 2 years, it's going to be 5.1. So the monthly minimum cost is going to be 5 million divided by 24. So the monthly minimum cost is 214,385. Okay, so 214,385. That's kind of what I got. Did I missed anything? Okay. Did I miss anything? So cleaning costs taken into account, 20,000, 5,000 taken into account, accountant 10,500 taken into account for 21 months, printers 25. Okay, I can check that one. Dealt with that. Dealt with this. Looks like we've covered everything. Okay, so it looks like we covered everything. So I'm getting 214,000 Rand per month. So what did the question ask us? The question asked us, calculate the minimum cost to business space to operate on a monthly basis using relevant costing principles. So there we go. Minimum costs per month, 214,385. Okay, that's what I got. You can check the solution. I don't know what the solution got. So you can have a look at that. So just be aware that is how that will do. So this is 10 marks, half a mark, most of these stuff. Okay, so you want to do it as quickly as possible. So it's 10 marks. Actually, it's 11 marks, 11 times 1.5. So you should be doing this in 16 minutes. Okay, so this must be done in 16 minutes. You will see this is a thing you will do probably, you can do it in 10 minutes. Once you get the hang of it, you literally going to want a question like this, which is a simple setup like that. You go paragraph by paragraph, and you will, what you're going to have to learn before the time is your thinking process. So you already have this format. This is the format you're going to do. Okay, so that is set and done. What's important is this over here, is to get this column right. How are you going to structure this column? It's generally going to be like in this manner, where they want a monthly amount, but not everything is easily calculated in a month. Okay, so what we had to do to get the correct monthly amount, we needed a 24-month amount. So each of this could be calculated 24 divided by, get a 24-month amount divided by 24. So you can decide what you want, but you're going to have to get this right. Once you have this figured out, once you do your calculations over here, that's the level of thinking you're going to need to do. Make sure you get this level of thinking right once you do these items. Okay, so just be aware of that. So now I'm going to do part B. So this here was part A. Now I'm going to do part B.
Fires?
Yeah.
Good morning. It's Rosa.
Yes.
I attempted this question and I missed the mark when it comes to the 24-month period for break even. So I ended up doing calculations for 1 year. My question is, if I had submitted a script like that with a 1-year calculation, I'm not getting even half marks, nothing.
No.
Okay.
Unless some of your marks can be calculated on a yearly basis, and it's fine. But in most cases, no, because it's missing the whole point. Just think about it this way. Your client asks you for a break even for 2 months. I mean, your client asking you for monthly break even so that they can break even and be debt free after 2 years. And you give them a calculation based on a 1 year. Is it gonna make them break? Is it gonna help them achieve the objective? No. So that's how when they mark in CTA and Psycho marks, that's how they think. Okay, so they're not marking, they're not giving you marks to say, oh, okay, the student kind of understood what was happening, let's give them marks. They sit back and they ask themselves, if this was in the real world, would this be correct? And the answer is no. So most likely, yeah. So obviously that is, because remember that yes, they want us to get a qualification, but they want us to be useful in the work out there. So they want to make sure that us as a future CA, we picking up the relevant issues, and then working and doing calculations and providing solutions based on the relevance of what is required. So yes, there's going to be some marks that is not based on the 1 year thing, on the 2 year thing, right? So you can get away. But in most cases where you needed to, in order to get the right number, you needed to work over a 2 year period. You won't get the marks. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So part B. Consider your answer in A above. How much does business space need to charge per desk per hour to cover? How much must so consider your answer in how much must a business how much does business space need to charge per desk per hour to cover its costs. Okay, so we're going to have to deal with that question now. So we have cost per month, okay? Cost per month is equal to 2184, okay? Even if this one is wrong, you must take it from here, okay? Sorry. So here we're going to say, even if that is wrong, you take it from there. Sorry, what's happening here? You cannot, okay, close. Sorry, just give me a moment. Okay. Okay. So cost per month, that's what we got. You can compare to the solution. I don't know if I got the exact same as Mark as a solution, but you can see if there's any differences. Just let me know if I made a fundamental mistake somewhere or left out something. Let me know. But based on what I'm reading, that's what I'm getting. Okay. So cost per month 214. Now the question is asking us calculate the cost per desk per hour. The cost per desk per hour to cover its costs. Okay, so this is a monthly cost. So we need a cost per desk per hour. So what we can do, we can divide by the number of hours. Okay, so now we're going to say number of hours. That's a monthly number of hours per month. Number of hours per month. So the number of hours per month, 12 hours per day times 30 days. Okay, so therefore this is going to be 12 times 30. So cost, this is the monthly cost of 21, whatever it is, divide by the number of hours per month. That's going to give us a cost per hour. Okay, so this is going to give us a cost per hour. Because we know there's 12 hours in a day, and we all know there is 30 days in a month. So this is going to give us cost per hour. So whatever this is that divided by that. So the cost per hour is that. But we needed to work out per desk, okay? So therefore, we're going to say number of desks. So we don't divide by 100, we're going to divide it by 70 desks, okay? Because remember, the occupancy is only 70. So to really break even, we must use what we expect to sell, which is 70 desks. So this now is going to be cost per hour per desk. So it's going to equal to that divided by 70. So the cost per hour per desk, I'm getting 850. Okay. And now what we will do, they want to know how much they must charge. That is their cost. So now remember they want to charge a 60% profit margin, I think. Let me just see with 60% profit margin. Where is that now? They want to charge a 60% markup. So that is markup on cost. Okay. So here we're going to say 60% markup. So what we will just, so remember 60% markup is going to say 160 divided by 100. So that's how you get the markup. So therefore the selling price charge per hour per desk should be whatever this is. So that is what they 1361 around that range. Okay. They would obviously have to compare this to what they'll obviously have to compare this to what the price is, because they want to charge the lowest price. Okay, so they'll have to charge, see what their competitors are doing. But if they at least get 851, they'll break even. With a markup of 60%, they need to charge 13 Rand per hour. Like very cheap, eh? Very cheap. So yeah, that is basically it over there, but that's per hour. Okay, so that is the answers to our part A and part B. You can do part C. So it's a theory question. It is a qualitative question, so you can see what they have to say, and then you can deal with that. If I'll give you a quick overview on transfer pricing, is there any questions on your guys' side? Anyone? Anyone here? All good, okay. So so I'll do a quick on transfer pricing, and then you can do a transfer pricing question, and you can let me know for those of you who's going to do a transfer pricing question. Let's just see who's actually sees quite a few people of my class people that didn't join today. Okay, so so I'm going to do a quick overview on transfer pricing, and I'll just do it over here. So this is, just so you know, this is the last class for the CTA course. Obviously for my registered students, we will have an exam session. I'll send out an email after your test 4. And then what you call it. So because of another 1 week delay, we're going to have to see how I just need to rearrange my timetable, because I want to give you some time to rest. It's very important. Please take a good 10 days off. Okay, so like I look 2 weeks may be too long now because of the fact that of this 1 week, what you call it, but literally take 10 days, just rest, recover, and then you come back with high intensity for the next 5 to 6 weeks up until the exam. So make sure you do rest, no books, nothing. Okay, try to take your mind off, what you call it. I know for some it's not going to be easy, because it's that test 4 is going to help you, it's going to make you decide whether you make exam entry or not. But I'll chat to a few of my students, and a lot of them made exam entry already. For most of them, some of them fully in. Some of them need 1 or 2 more courses to make in, And with test 4, it's possibility. So don't give up. Focus on those. For those that must still make the 1 or 2 courses, focus on that 1 or 2 course that you need to do in. For those that made it in already, obviously, you just need to try to boost your mark, okay? But remember, after test 4, try to switch off and recover, because you're going to need to be 100% fresh when you come to the finals. So don't stress, don't study, just rest. Because if you're going to continue studying, you're going to continue studying, but you're going to be studying at not your best level. So you're not going to get your best results. So rest for good 10 days. If you want to take 7, but make sure you rest really not less than 7 days. And then you come back much, much stronger. Remember, after test 4, you don't stress, because there's nothing you can do. It's outside of your control, okay? What is within your control is this remaining days. Once test 4 is written, everything is outside of your control. The best that you can do, the only thing that you can do is, for those that is religious, is to pray, right? Like the prayer I used to make after my exam is the following. I used to say, "Oh Almighty, make that which I have written sufficient for me to pass." So that is what I couldn't do anything after that. After I wrote, there's nothing I could do, because the test is done, right? So I just used to, every day, just to say, "Almighty, that which I've written, make it sufficient for me to pass." That's what I used to do. Like for auditing, it didn't work, because obviously I didn't put in my effort. But for the others, it worked, because I did put in effort. I just wasn't the best student. So, but in the end, it worked. So somehow what I've written was sufficient. Besides for auditing, because remember, you first need to put in your effort. I did nothing for auditing, so obviously it didn't turn out well. But if you did your effort, after test 4, there's nothing you can do. You can only pray. So then don't stress. So when you pray, rather be happy as opposed to stressing, because you want to rest after that period. You want to rest after that period, so that you can actually recover during that period. So when you start your exam preparation, you are ready to go. Remember, you're only going to know probably a week or two before. You're only going to know a week or two before October exams, whether you made it or not. It's too late to start studying then. So therefore, rest. There's nothing you can do. Enjoy yourself. 7 to 10 days, if not a week, if not 2 weeks, then restart after 2 weeks for the next 6 weeks that you need to study. That is going to give you the best possible chance. But don't try to continue. Don't write on Tuesday and then Wednesday start studying for the final exams. Take a good solid time out. Okay. So for this over here, let's quickly go into transfer pricing. So for and just one more thing. So for those that have not made 1 or 2 papers, focus on that, because the ultimate goal here now is to make exam entry. So I've spoken to a few, and a lot of them made most of the papers. Some made everything. Some made 3 or 4 out of the 5. So for those that made 3 or 4 out of the 5, try to work on that 1 or 2 to get in. Remember, test 4, definitely possible. Like for those that must still make FAC 1, FAC 3, that's a big focus, because that's probably going to be the hardest paper out of the lot from MAC, FAC, and the FACs, because it's leases, employee benefits, and provisions, and you don't know which. If you look at the past papers, any of that comes in. Definitely leases 50%, but the other 50% is either employee benefits or provisions, or combination of the two. So you need to know that fairly well. So focus on that. For FAC 4, FAC 2, not that hard. You just have 2 topics to focus on: cash flows and foreign subs. So not that hard. Okay, so make your focus on that. I'm not saying ignore the rest, work on the rest, but focus on the 2 or 3, the 1 or 2 that you need to get in, so that you can get in and you can enjoy your 2-week break before you hit the road again. So remember, whether you feel you don't make it or not, or whether you feel you're not making it, still study. I remember having a student back like probably 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And I think like 7 days before the time, they let him know that they made a mistake in his papers. They made a mistake in his marks. He actually qualifies for the exam. 7 weeks. He was told he doesn't qualify for the exam, so he didn't study. Why? Why must you study if he didn't qualify for the exam? So 7 days, you get a call. If he phones me, can I help him? I'm like, 7 days. There's nothing I can do in 7 days. You understand? But I think he still went to go right. I don't know. But basically, just study. You never know. Like he got told he didn't make it because he never. But somehow, I don't know what happened. I think they were probably looking for people to go write the exam, and then they did some remarking. And one of his papers, I think 2 of his papers, he got 20%. When they rechecked, he actually got 50%. I don't know what they did wrong. I think they probably picked up that there was a batch of papers that weren't marked correctly. And he literally went from 20% to 50%. And that pushed him in. And he saw his papers. Yeah, they told him, here's what we did. We either they missed count or they missed mark, and but 7 days obviously is not going to work. So just make sure that of what the result is going to be is outside of your control. So you do what is within your control and just study. Okay, but remember, your mental is going to be the biggest factor in your, what you call it, are you exam fit? Exam fit does not necessarily mean you know your work. It's one thing to know your work, but you must still be physically and mentally fit to go right. So you need to be not tired. You can't be burnt out, and basically, when I have the energy, when I have the motivation, when I have the inspiration. If you burnt out or whatever, you just can't anymore. It's like, just think about people running the marathon. I used to work with guys who used to run the marathon. I never ran marathons. I can hardly run 5Ks. So I used to work with guys that run the marathon, and they used to tell me, they used to train quite a bit, but like they would say, mentally they can do, they still in that last, I don't know how many, what stretch it is called, but anyway, in the last stretch, they, what you call it, even if it's just like 10 kilometers remaining, they may have the mental capacity, but they were not physically, the legs was finished, or they kind of had the physicalities remaining, but they weren't mentally, they were just out of it, and they couldn't make it. You understand? Sometimes they try to drag themselves. So when they were mentally strong, they weren't physically, they tried to drag themselves. So when I think about that, there is something similar to CT as a marathon you are running. So you need to be both physically and mentally. Sometimes if you're mentally out, you won't be able to finish. So make sure the way you're going to be mentally fit for this exam that you sleep enough. You don't study 24 hours. If you study at night, you sleep during the day. If you study during the day, you sleep at night. And then also, just take your mind off studying, just for a short period, 7, 10 days, and then you get back into it. Please don't burn yourself out. If you're burnt out, no matter how much you're studying, nothing is being absorbed. So nothing is going into the subconscious mind that is required when you go write your exam. So just think about those kind of stuff. Don't ignore everything else and just study. Study is only one aspect of being successful in your exams. So look at the whole picture. Okay. So same for this, for the next few days. If you're tired, take the day out. Like, I don't know if you know this famous, popular, is quite famous, he's popular. I follow him quite often. Some of you might know him. He's an entrepreneur, right? He's basically a venture capitalist, Vusi Tembakwayo. So he's quite well known. And one of his posts on LinkedIn I came across, I think the way he worded it is more marketing ploy. I agree with the message, not exactly the exact wording, but the message I agree with. So he starts off his post by saying, they lie when they tell you winners are not quitters. Okay. So he starts off his post. Obviously, that captures your attention. So he starts off, they lie when they say winners are not quitters. Then he goes on in saying, some days I quit. So remember, he's very confident, borderline arrogant. He's very confident. So he considers himself a winner. Okay, and I mean, the guy is a winner. So he said, some days I quit. There are days where it's 12 o'clock and I just give up. I cancel all my meetings. I shut down my laptop and I go home and I go sleep. Then I set an appointment for myself at 5 o'clock in the morning and I hit the gym to then I restart the day. So what does he's trying to tell you? So like I said, what I don't agree with, I don't think that he's quitting. But anyway, he's obviously trying to make a strong message by using the word quitting. So he's saying he quit that day by canceling his meetings, by not working that day, closing his laptop and going home to go sleep, so that tomorrow he starts off fresh. But the way he starts off fresh tomorrow, he go hit the gym. I mean, the guy is quite bulky, so he's into gymming, right? So when I say bulky, I mean like muscle building kind of stuff. So he's into gymming, right? So whatever works for you. Like for me, what works for me is wake up, go stand outside, breathe some fresh air, and drink black coffee. That works for me, right? And I just think. So I'm not into this gymming stuff. So I need to get there, obviously, if I want to live a good, long life. But anyway, for now, I'm okay. We're just breathing in some fresh air and looking into trees and thinking and sipping on black coffee with no sugar. So that is basically what I would do. So whatever works for you. Alcohol's not going to work, so please take that off the list, but whatever works for you, right? So that is the important aspect. That guy's not successful for no reason, eh? So you must look at the successful people and what do they do. So if you feel burnt out, just stop, shut down and go sleep. Wake up tomorrow morning and then restart. So think about as those small things. What we do as students, I remember I being a student, we think that the only way we're going to get through, no matter how burnt out we are, is to continue working, otherwise we're going to fail. But the successful people don't do that. The successful people realize that, you know what, I'm being unproductive. By me sitting here and looking over pages, trying to study, I'm only being busy. But they don't focus on being busy. They focus on being productive. So how are you going to be productive? Shut down and go sleep. Tomorrow morning you wake up and then you restart. So don't take things like that for lightly. In the academic world, and I watch like some of the other institutions and so forth, all they focus on is content, study. They have no time for breaks. So they are making you being busy, but they don't realize what the successful are doing. The successful is not about being busy. The successful is about being productive. So make sure you find a way that you're actually making ground, so you're actually making progress, and you need to be in a mental and physical healthy state to actually be productive. So take those kind of stuff into consideration, even now for those of you who needs to get through. Sometimes you might feel like you're trying to study, but you can't because you're probably distracted on you needing to get through. That is distracting you. You're distracted on you just feeling burnt out, tired, and all of those type of things. Just take off and rest, and then come back and study. But remember, when you rest, you cannot be thinking about your exams. You can't be thinking about, just shut out completely. So find a mechanism to shut out. And then come back. Remember, don't underestimate sleep. Sleep is extremely important. Sleep should be part of the ingredients of your success. So 8 hours a day is quite important, 6 hours minimum, and that's gonna help you. If you're sleeping 5 hours, if you're bragging about sleeping 4 to 5 hours a day, it just means you are still learning the game of becoming truly, what you call it. I used to be like that. It's like, oh, 5 hours, brilliant. Doesn't last, right? I think I was all, or like to myself in my head, I thought I was like, okay, I'm doing this 5 hours. Some people need 8 hours. But what I learned as I learned on, I realized that sleeping plays a critical role. So yes, 8 hours is ideal. According to neuroscience, 7.5 hours is ideal, right? Is not ideal. 8 hours is ideal. The optimum number of sleep is 7.5 hours, because we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So the 20-minute rest I tell you about. So that first 20 minutes is, if you want a quick nap, quick rest, you do 20 minutes. If you go beyond 20 minutes, you're actually going to feel lethargic, because after 20 minutes, your brain goes into a deep sleep. So if you wake up like after 30 minutes, you still feel drowsy and tired because you broke deep sleep. So you actually need to go for 90 minutes. So after 90 minutes, if you wake up, you will feel fresh, because one cycle of complete sleep has happened. So the moment you go past 90 minutes, you start the cycle restarts again into what you go. So if you wake up after 2 hours, you're going to feel drowsy, you're going to feel still tired, because you broke a deep hour of a deep cycle of sleep. So you play on those type of things, right? So you have a look at those type of things. That's why the 20 minutes, if you want a quick nap, 20 minutes max, then you get up, because you're going to stay 30 minutes, you're going to feel drowsy. You're going to feel lethargic, because your brain was going into its deep sleep moment. So it works all in 90 minutes cycles. So if you sleep for 90 minutes, it'll give you 7.5 hours. And that's why they say that's the optimum. That is the optimum number of hours to sleep. But 8 hours, 6 hours is fine. So like 7.5, and that's why the earliest you wake up is 6, because that is a 90 minutes before the time. So when you wake up after 6 hours, you will still feel good enough, because you didn't break into a cycle of sleep. So just think about those type of things, how you structure your sleeping. It sounds crazy, but it actually it makes sense. I don't know if you felt it. I read it for the first time last year. I realized, oh, because I used to go take a quick 20-minute nap, but I can't take a quick 20-minute rest, and I used to say, okay, 45 minutes. But when I went to wake up, I felt literally lethargic. And what I picked out on my own, and when I read it, I was actually quite surprised, because I needed, once I was after 20 minutes, I needed 90 minutes. When after 90 minutes I wake up, I was fresh. I didn't know it. I didn't know. I just felt that way. So when I read it I can't remember which book I was reading, and I watched it on a video. And then when I read it, I immediately believed it, because that's how I felt for many years before that. So you guys, I don't know if it works, even if you can, if you have experienced that, but just think about it. So don't underestimate your sleep. Don't think you must study 12 hours and sleep for 3 hours and get up. Don't think you're cool by doing that. You're actually just shutting yourself down, and you're making yourself unproductive. So look at those kind of small 1% that you can change, that will result in significant improvements in your overall results, CTA, as well as your overall being, if I can put it that way. Okay, so let's move on to transfer pricing. Yeah, Rory-san.
Before we move on to transfer pricing, Faiz, thank you so much for talking about sleep, ne? I just want to ask, what's your take about, I'm struggling to wake up early hours of the morning and build a routine of pushing about 3 hours, waking up at about 3-4 o'clock. I'm battling with that. What would be the theory behind that? And thank you that our classes incorporate mental wellness, physical wellness. That helps a lot.
So for me, it's a difficult question to answer, right? Firstly, let me tell you, I'm not a neuroscientist, nor am I a psychologist, right? I'm just giving you stuff of what I watch and what I read. So I read certain things only, what I'm interested in. So I'm very interested in how the brain works, and then in self-development and all of those type of things. So when it comes to self-development, neuroscience is important. Psychology, when I talk about psychology, I don't look at psychology in a negative sense. I look at psychology in basically positive psychology, behavioral psychology, and cognitive psychology, the mental, the load on your brain. So for cognitive psychology is important in education. That's why I read about that. So I'm only giving you some so I'm no qualified person. So I'm just giving what I've read from reputable sources. So when I choose a book based on doing some reviews if this person is well known for what they are talking about. Okay. So this whole 3 o'clock and so forth all depends on you, right? Some people study well at night. Some people study well during the day. For me personally, I can't study during the night. My brain shut down. When I was in CTA, I think I trained my brain to shut down at 10 o'clock. Even if I didn't want it to, at some point, there were some times I wasn't done studying and I needed to continue studying. My brain shut down at 10 o'clock. So when 10 o'clock came, I shut down and I went to go and I just, even if I didn't study something finish, but I couldn't anymore. So some people study very well at night and some study well during the day. I was during the day type of person. Remember, there's no one solution fits all, right? We must see what works for you. There's some people that can sleep a bit, study, sleep a bit, study. Some people sleep the hours and then study full on. If you can wake up that early, remember, during those hours, so if you, and that's from a religious perspective as well as from a non-religious perspective, the early hours of the morning is somehow, like if you read Robin Sharma's book, and if you read other people on morning routines, and the people that write books on morning routines, and even people that implemented morning routines early in the morning, they will tell you there's something about early in the morning that is somehow special. Now, I come from a certain religion, and it's made crystal clear from the religion I follow that in that time it is. So from our religion, there is a specific crystal clear, no doubt, mentioned many times from authentic sources about that early morning. So when you read Robin Sharma, read what you call it, other people is non-religious. Robin Sharma somewhat religious, but other non-religious people, they can't pinpoint, but they'll tell you something about that early morning is special. So if you can, it will obviously be highly beneficial because something about that time is special. I know it. Well, not I know it. I believe in it because of this is people that have implemented it and they can't pinpoint it, but they know there's something special. Plus, from the religion I follow, crystal clear during those early hour mornings that it is a special time. So when they tell me it is special during that time, I immediately believe because I already believed it. Okay, so so if you can start in early morning, that will definitely work. What you must, when you do study, so whenever you do study, the ideal situation is that you study in chunks. So if you look at people that really work well, and in psychology also they talk about it, is to work they call it the 5 great hour concept. So the 5 great hour concept is you only work whatever your work is. So for you, in most cases, you have maybe normal work, but maybe what you consider your actual work is your study. So you look for the 5 hour, use the 5 great hour concept. You only work for 5 hours and you work in chunks of 90 minutes. Or for some people can push for 3 hours. If you're really up for it, you can push for 3 hours, but you break after 3 hours, then you restart again. So Robin Sharma talks about the following. It's actually like he calls these things, but actually when I read other books and I see it's actually it's a thing in psychology where you work in 90-minute sprints or you work in 10-minute sprints. So you at least want to have one 90-minute sprint. So every single day at the exact same time, you work for 90 minutes. You do your most important task for 90 minutes. So you choose what that is. If it's doing a question, is it doing a question? Is it doing theory? Is it whatever it is? But you do your first 90 minutes of study is your first important task on studying, 90 minutes. That's what you do, right? Then you take a break, 10, 15 minutes. Then you maybe either do another 90 minutes or you do the other thing that they call the 60-10 method. The 60-10 method is you work for 60 minutes, you time yourself, you work for 60 minutes, stop, 10-minute break, come back, 60 minutes. But what's important, that 10-minute break must be a recovery session. The 10-minute break must not be a distraction session. The 10-minute break must be a recovery session. So a distraction would be you going onto social media, you scrolling and all of those type of stuff. That is distraction. That 10-minute needs to be a recovery. So what can you do in that 10 minutes? Take a walk outside, go breathe some fresh air, just think. Or you read a book or read an article that is beneficial. Or you just rest. Or you could drink some coffee or tea or water. So that 10-minute break must be strategic. So not going onto social media. Then you come back for another 60 minutes and just run that cycle as long as you can. So some people do 90 minutes, 60, 60, 60. So they have a 90 minutes and 360 sessions. So that is 3 hours plus 1.5 hours, it's 4.5, close to 5 hours. So that is basically what you can do. When you do, it's up to you. But if you can do in the early mornings, that's fine. But you have to find a way that's actually going to wake you up after. If you want to wake up at 3, then you need to sleep by, I don't know what time you need to sleep by to wake up after 6 or 7.5 hours. So just think about that. Just one more thing. If I'm you, I'll shut down Facebook from now, okay? Especially if you're on that CTA group on Facebook, when I get out of it, I've been in it. I was in it to understand students. I'll only join that group to understand students. What was the pain points? What was the strugglings? But I left it because they made me depressed, because it's just negativity on that chat group. So while I'm still on it, I just went off it. I blocked, I don't know what I did, but I don't get notifications because it is that group, that Facebook group on CTA, it was started with a good intention, but unfortunately, most of the feeds are negativity. Get out of it. You want to, I went into it to try to be part, to find ways to see what people are struggling so that I can provide help. But I started struggling, so just too negative. There's hardly any positivity. So get out of that, you can stay in the group, but shut down Facebook. Do something that you don't get the notifications, because you want to make sure that you block yourself from outside distractions. Extremely important. And that Facebook group is extremely, what you call it. Like with me, I don't have Facebook and Instagram on my phone because it was just too many notifications and I was just too much distracted. So you need to find something that eliminates all of those distractions. So when you study, and if you want to study for 3 hours, don't study more than 3. I mean, you can, but then limit it to 3 hours and take a break. But make sure if you're coming back to study, that break you're taking is a true recovery session and not a distraction session. So are you going to be destructive? Is by going onto social media. Okay. So that's all I could say. Like waking up at 3 is up to you. I can't give you an answer on that. I just quickly need to finish up on transfer pricing. So when we come to transfer pricing, okay, what's going to trigger that there's most likely transfer pricing? It's one of two things. It's the same thing, but it's just worded differently. So either they'll tell you you have divisions that will trigger possible transfer pricing. So when you read a scenario and there's divisions, you might just put your brain on alert. So let your brain know it must go on alert when it sees transfer pricing. I mean, when it sees the word divisionalize, or if it sees the word decentralization. So when you see that, tell your brain that it needs to go on alert. You don't want to put it on alert. The brain must automatically put yourself on alert that there is a possibility of transfer pricing. So transfer pricing will take place when you run a decentralized business or you have divisions. So decentralization means you have divisions, okay? So for example, like Old Mutual, huge company, right? So Old Mutual will have different divisions. So you'll have what do they call it? Personal finance division. They will have the wealth division, and then they have whatever else. Okay, they have a few divisions, right? So each division run on its own, and they get evaluated on their own. But in order to ensure that a company that runs a decentralized system maximizes their profit, they will try to buy things and transact with each other. Okay, but because they're running a decentralized system, and that means each division runs on its own, they transact with each other as if they are separate entities. Okay, so the whole point of transfer pricing over here is to set a transfer price between the divisions that makes both of them happy, while at the same time maximizes the profit of the company. Now, this is very challenging in the real world. There's no solution that will give you the ideal answer, but there are methods of implementing that will make everybody happy, but it's not necessarily cast in stone. Okay, so that is a challenge that we have with transfer pricing. So what they're going to ask you with transfer pricing is a minimum price or a maximum price. Now, before you deal with minimum price and maximum price, you need to identify the two divisions or the two entities. Okay, so you need to identify the two divisions that is in question. You need to identify who is the buyer and who is the seller, because that will determine whether you're working the minimum price or whether you're working out the maximum price. The maximum price will be from the buyer division's point of view. The minimum price will be from the selling division's point of view. And just think of it, makes sense in this way. It makes sense in this way. How does it make sense? The selling division is interested in knowing what is the minimum price they are willing to accept. The buying division is interested in what is the maximum price they're willing to pay. So when they ask you for the maximum price, they're asking you from the buying division's perspective. If they're asking you for the minimum price, they're asking you from the selling division's point of view. Or they can put it the other way around. They'll ask you, what is the price from the buying division? Then that means they're asking you for the maximum price. Or they will say, what is the selling division's price? And that means they're asking you for the minimum price. So you must be able to do it both ways. Okay, so let's start off. The maximum price is the easy one. Okay, so we'll start off with maximum price. Maximum TP. Okay, so this is buyer point of view. Okay, so the maximum price is as follows. The max TP equals the following. So the max TP equals the following. What does it equal? So max transfer price is basically normal price plus cost saving. So they're going to ask you what. So the assumption is that they're going to transact with each other. Okay, so the assumption is that the main company wants the two divisions to transact with each other. So now they're going to ask you, what is the maximum price that the buying division is willing to pay? So the maximum price that the buying division is willing to pay is that normal price plus a cost savings. So what is that? The normal price is the price that the buying division would get when they go to an outsider, a third party. So the normal price is just basically the price that the buying division would pay to a third party or in the normal market. The cost savings is basically the cost, any cost that the buying division would save as a result of transacting with the internal company. So a typical example would be as follows. The buying division may incur ordering costs. The buying division may incur ordering costs if it buys from a third party. So therefore, the cost of the buying division for buying from a third party is two things. It is the price they pay the third party plus any ordering costs. So that is their total cost that they incur. So therefore, when they the maximum price they're willing to pay the internal division would be both those amounts. The price they must actually pay the third-party supplier plus any other costs incurred in order to effect the transaction. And it will typically be ordering costs. So that is what you do over there, because generally when you buy internally, there won't be any ordering costs incurred. Okay, so just be on the lookout for that. That cost saving can be any costs that the buying division would save as a result of transacting internally. Okay, so that will be included over there. So that is quite straightforward. The next one is the minimum price. The minimum TP, and this is from the seller POV. Okay, so this is from the seller POV, seller point of view. So the minimum price is as follows. The minimum transfer price equals variable costs plus contribution margin foregone. Okay. Now, contribution margin foregone. Now, this variable cost is now, this is the important aspect over here. So you always write down the formula like this: variable cost plus contribution margin foregone. Now let's talk about this variable cost over here. That variable cost is all variable costs incurred to sell to the internal company. Okay, so very important. That variable cost is the variable cost incurred to sell to an internal company. Now, what you must know, this variable cost is two types of variable costs. It is manufacturing variable costs as well as non-manufacturing variable costs, right? Yeah. Yeah, so just total variable costs, right? So what's important to take note over here is the following. The production variable costs will be exactly the same for a third party as well as for the internal company. They're not going to change the production for the internal and change the production for a third party. The production process is going to be exactly the same. So the production costs will generally be exactly the same for the internal company and the external company, the external third party. But what could differ is that for the external third party, they may use specific packaging. So they will incur packaging costs, but they will not necessarily use the packaging for the internal company, because they will just transfer the completed goods just so to the internal company. So therefore, this variable cost may exclude a packaging cost. Similarly, so just be aware of that. So this variable cost over here is only all the variable costs incurred to sell to the internal company. Now we come over here, contribution margin foregone. Contribution margin foregone, what is contribution margin? Remember, contribution margin equals selling price minus variable costs. Now, once again, we have the term variable costs. Now, like I said, this variable cost may be different to that variable cost. So this variable cost is the variable cost to sell to the internal company. This variable cost is the variable cost incurred to sell to an external third party. Very, very important. So, like I said, the production variable cost will be the same for the external as well as the internal, but what may differ? You may incur, like I said, a packaging cost specifically for external, but you won't incur it for internal. You must read the scenario carefully to pick it up. There's not always going to be a difference, but generally there is. The most common difference, though, is the following. that you may incur a variable selling cost for an external company, for external sale. So whereas for the internal sale, there's no variable selling commission. So therefore, this variable cost may include a variable selling commission, but this one will not, because you don't incur variable selling commission for an internal sale. So you might just pick up what are the variable costs specifically for internal, what are the variable costs specifically for external. Like I said, the production cost will generally be the same, and the differences will either be a packaging or it will be a selling commission. Okay, so just be aware of that. So variable costs, it is the cost to sell internally. This over here is contribution margin foregone. And contribution margin is sales minus variable cost, and the variable cost relates to external sales. Now, here you can see it's contribution margin foregone. This is just basically an opportunity cost. So you will only have a contribution margin foregone if you have to forego some external sales in order to produce internally. So you will only have a contribution margin foregone if you have to forego external sales in order to produce internally. And the way you'll work this out is to work out a capacity. So basically, you're going to have a capacity calculation. A capacity calculation. Okay, so the capacity calculation is as follows. You will say normal capacity or maximum capacity. Normal capacity, or let's just say maximum capacity, less, so maximum or normal capacity minus external sales. And this will give you available capacity. Then we're going to say internal sales and this will give you a surplus or a shortfall. If you have a surplus, then that means you have enough capacity to sell externally and internally. So that means contribution margin foregone will be zero because there's no opportunity costs. The moment you have a shortfall, that means you can't sell externally and internally. Something has to go. So what will happen, you're going to have, whatever the shortfall is, let's say it's 1,000 unit shortfall, then that means you're going to have to forego 1,000 external sales. So your foregone contribution would be 1,000 external sales foregone, which you get from your shortfall over here, multiplied by the contribution margin. So that is basically it. Then this over here, let's say you need 2,000 sales. So this will be variable cost for internal multiplied by 2,000 sales. And that will give you your total minimum transfer price. Okay, so that is basically it that I wanted to cover. So you can practice a transfer pricing question. If you have any questions, you can just contact me. And that is it for transfer pricing, or at least the major issues regarding transfer pricing. Is there any questions from your guys' side? Then we can call it a day. No questions? Are we all good? If you're all good, you guys are good to go. And then all the best for next week. And just try your best. Okay. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Faiz.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.